blacks and Hispanics, they get tired of getting beat up by Samoans. Because that's all we know is fist fights.
Did you catch this? 100% Samoan. Lift up your shirt, bro. Lift up your shirt.
Lift up your shirt, show your tap.
Look at that. Samoan.
Wrestling with one dude came and kicked me in the side of the face. Wrestling with the blood filter in my eyes, so I couldn't see.
We all the same, homie. That's who you tried. You know, that's how Samoans get down.
Big U had a serious rep for being a bully, being the top dog of the Rollin 60s. He was known for extorting other gangs, pressing celebrities, and just using fear to get his way. That kind of behavior is exactly what landed him behind bars eventually. But before karma came knocking, there was one crew he couldn't push around: the Samoan gangs.
You gonna get murdered too. That's what the whole song talk about. Another body murdered coming from gangsta.
And if you know even a little about gang culture, then you know the Sons of Samoa aren't to be taken lightly. They are one of the most serious and dangerous yet respected groups out there.
Did you catch this? 100% Samoan. Lift up your shirt, bro. Lift up your shirt.
Lift up your shirt, show your tap.
Look at that. Samoan.
So when Big U tried to bring that same bully energy to them, it backfired badly. This takes us to April 2014. Big U got into it with some Samoan guys who were working security at a club. According to Big U's version of the story, the whole situation kicked off when his homie wasn't allowed into the club by the Samoan security. His boys started mouthing off and things escalated from there.
Who's going in? It's only 30-40 minutes left in the club. This dude high or something. Your homeboy high. Yeah, they won't let him in. I'm like, I'm gonna stay out here with him. He just get off on the security guard for no apparent reason.
Big U says the security guards started gathering around them, about 15 deep. He claims he sized up the situation, knew he was outnumbered, but still decided to fight.
Security gathers. Big U, you straight, girl? So I made the assessment. It's 15 of them. You fit to get. But how the rules go, I'm gonna get out where I'm mad at. Wrestling with one dude came and kicked me in the side of the face.
And according to him, he held his own against all of them.
I think I did pretty good, me versus 15. You know what I'm saying? Other said and went back home. That's the difference between Big U and 90% of these motherfuckers.
But honestly, not many people believe that story. First of all, it's the Samoans we're talking about. Nobody's buying that one guy, even someone with Big U's rep, took on 15 Samoans and came out clean. Especially since after the fight, Big U was seen with a bloody face, one eye swollen and bleeding. Dude looked rough. Even his own son was pissed about how bad he looked, which pretty much told everyone who really caught the beatdown.
Oh, y'all hit him like that? It's a crime scene. Hold up, you back up. Back up, please.
So a lot of people think Big U made up the whole "I fought them all" off angle to protect his image, especially since he was always hyping himself up as one of the Rollin 60s top fighters.
I was a squabble in the hood. I squabbled everything. So I would say me.
That whole incident also got people talking about the clear differences between Big U and the Samoan gangs. Yeah, the Samoans are definitely feared, but they're also respected. They carry themselves with honor, look out for their community, respect their people, and even try to uplift the weak and steer the youth away from violence.
What we want to advocate is the colors. We want to leave the colors for the next generation, right?
You want to leave the colors
alone.
Gotcha. Bloods and Crips.
Right.
Meanwhile, Big U and his Rollin 60s clique have been known more for chaos, destruction, and even killing each other. Everybody already knew Big U was one of the top dogs in the Rollin 60s Crips. He never hid his gang ties. He was always talking about how he came up robbing cars and earned his rep in the streets by putting hands on his enemies. Back in the 80s, Big U was deep in the drug game, but he claimed he gave it up after reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. That's when he switched lanes and got into the rap industry. He started managing artists, and one of the first big names he worked with was Corrupt, but Big U never really left the streets. In 1991, he got caught up trying to steal a massive load of an undercover cop, which landed him in prison for 13 years. While locked up, Big U was still on his gangster time. He admitted to stabbing multiple people in prison and even bragged about knocking a dude's eyeball out of its socket with a single punch. After serving his time, he came home in 2004 and rebranded himself as a community leader by starting a charity called Developing Options. On paper, Developing Options was supposed to help kids stay out of the streets and get involved in sports. But according to the feds, Big U was using the charity as a front to move dirty money. The city of LA even funded Developing Options through the Gang Reduction and Youth Development Grid reward program, giving Big U over $500,000 a year since 2015. That money was supposed to go toward at-risk youth, but instead Big U was allegedly pocketing a huge chunk of it.
Funding a South LA-based charity, Developing Options, which purports to help at-youth risk escape gang life and escape the perils of gangs in high-crime areas.
And it wasn't just government money. Even celebrities got caught up in the scam. According to the indictment, Draymond Green and Shaquille O'Neal both donated $20,000 each to Developing Options, thinking they were supporting a good cause. But instead of helping kids, Big U allegedly transferred the money straight into his personal accounts.
Mr. Henley is accused of embezzling donations made by celebrities, professional athletes, and businesses to his charity, Developing Options.
Some people got scammed out of money. Others got hands put on them. One of the wildest stories in the indictment involves boxer Adrien Broner. Back in 2019, Broner allegedly set up a high-stakes dice game in LA, inviting a bunch of NBA players. The problem was that Broner and his crew were using trick dice and ended up finessing millions from the players. When Big U heard about it, he wasn't happy, not because of the scam itself, but because Broner didn't check in with him first. So Big U sent his crew to rough up Adrien Broner. After that, Big U took the money Broner had stolen from the NBA players and gave it back to them. But of course, it wasn't just out of the kindness of his heart. He allegedly made each player pay him $100,000 in exchange for getting their money back. And according to an FBI informant, this wasn't just a one-time thing. A lot of NBA players and celebrities would check in with Big U to make sure they were safe at parties, games, or advertising shoots. Anyone who didn't check in risked getting pressed by Big U's crew. Big U even once said, "If I don't pick up the phone, that could mean death for somebody." The indictment also reveals that Big U was shaking down weed dispensaries, forcing them to pay him $25,000 a month just to operate without problems. One dispensary owner couldn't afford the payments anymore, so Big U sent his goons to rob the shop. Armed men stormed in, stole cash and a bunch of weed. Then later that same day, Big U called the shop owner to his house. When the owner showed up, Big U had all the stolen money and product laid out on the table and told him, "That's how you rob yourself." Then, just to add insult to injury, he made the guy pay him another $10,000 to avoid getting robbed again. But Big U wasn't done yet. He wanted to rob more dispensaries. He told the same shop owner to help him set up other weed stores, promising him a cut of the money. As proof of how serious he was, Big U even handed the guy back some of the money that had just been stolen from his own shop. Now, on the flip side, we have the Samoans. Like we mentioned earlier, these guys weren't playing around. They were known for being one of the most serious and dangerous gangs out there. The gang, known as Sons of Samoa, SOS, got its start back in the mid-1980s in Long Beach, California. Over time, though, their reach expanded way beyond that. By the 1990s, they had spread to Hawaii and across various parts of California, including key areas in the Bay Area like San Jose, Oakland, and Hayward. Incidentally, these were the same cities where members of the Samoan family lived, which only added to their deep connections and influence in the region. The police in Washington state had a lot to say about the SOS gang and their reputation. They were well known for using intimidation tactics to get what they wanted. Extortion was also a common move, and they weren't shy about pulling off drug ripoffs or even committing homicide when things escalated.
What kind of weapons do the gangs use? Your gang, for example?
38, 22, 357, 9, AK.
It's pretty heavy sort of artillery.
Yeah.
These guys weren't the type to back down from a fight either. They'd throw hands with just about any gang that crossed their path. Their most common rivals, though, were the Tongan Crips gangsters, which only added to the tension on the streets. When it came to their image, the SOS gang used a few specific symbols to represent themselves. One of their most recognizable signs was the Seattle Mariners logo, which they'd use on hats or clothing. They also had unique hand signals to show affiliation. These weren't just for show. These symbols carried weight, especially in gang-heavy areas where every sign and symbol sent a message. According to Long Beach detective Norm Sorensen, who spoke to the Los Angeles Times in 1990, the Sons of Samoa had a reputation for being an incredibly tough group, especially when they had been drinking or were under the influence of drugs. Sorensen explained that their tolerance for conflict was basically if someone so much as looked at them the wrong way. A fight was almost guaranteed to break out. He described them as the type of gang that would fight at the drop of a hat. and their unpredictability made them even more dangerous. Their violent reputation wasn't just talk either. Stories about the SOS Gang's willingness to fight and use violence spread quickly, earning them a lot of respect and fear on the streets. Whether it was intimidation, enforcing their dominance, or straight-up brawling with rival gangs, SOS had a no-nonsense approach to handling business. They made sure everyone knew they weren't a group to mess with. One thing that made the Sons of Samoa SOS Gang stand out was how different they were from other gangs in certain ways. Unlike most gangs, they didn't operate completely outside of traditional society. There wasn't any formal initiation process like the brutal hazing or jumping in rituals that are common in a lot of gangs. Joining SOS was more organic. Samoans came together out of necessity, driven by the need to protect themselves and each other in communities where they were a small minority. To put things into perspective, back in 2000, the entire Samoan population in Oakland was just 614 people. That's only about 0.15% of the city's population. It's no wonder they felt the need to stick together when they were such a tiny community compared to others. A friend of the Samoan family once described the gang in court records, saying it had a heavy presence in areas like San Jose and even in Samoan churches. It was in these churches that members of SOS would talk about values like respecting others, especially elders, a big part of Samoan culture. But outside of church, it was a whole different story. The same guys who were preaching respect and community inside those walls would show a much darker side when they were out in the streets.
Well, I won't hesitate to shoot anyone.
You won't?
No, I wouldn't hesitate to shoot anyone if they come and mess with me.
Interestingly, despite how bad SOS could be at times, not everyone saw them purely as a criminal gang. For some, especially other Samoans in the area, SOS was more like a social club that brought the community together. It wasn't just about crime. It was about fostering a sense of ethnic brotherhood and looking out for one another in a world where they felt outnumbered and overlooked. For many, it was less about being a gang in the traditional sense and more about having each other's backs in a hostile environment. In the Bay Area, the Sons of Samoa operated a little differently compared to many other gangs, especially when it came to the infamous color wars that defined so much of gang life in places like Los Angeles during the 1990s. While the Bloods and Crips were going at it full force in LA, SOS in the Bay didn't seem to take those rivalries as seriously. They weren't as focused on the traditional red versus blue battles that defined so many street wars. Instead, their focus was more about their own alliances, survival, and controlling their territory. But that doesn't mean they weren't dangerous. In fact, their willingness to adapt and align with other groups when it suited them made them even more unpredictable. For example, federal prosecutors in San Jose revealed that a subset of SOS operating out of Monterey, California, had formed an alliance with a local Norteno crew called the Murder Squad. Together, these groups weren't just causing trouble, they were escalating things to a deadly level. In 2017, SOS and the Murder Squad reportedly teamed up to target rival Sereno members. They weren't just making threats or getting into small scuffles. They were actively working together to take out their enemies. In one case, they collaborated on a planned murder of rival Surenos, showing just how tight their alliance had become. They even carried out drive-by shootings, with reports detailing how they fired multiple shots from a revolver into a Hayward home where Sureno members were staying. And it wasn't just about guns and shootings. SOS had no problem resorting to more old-school methods of intimidation and robbery. They were known to walk right up to someone, deliver a knockout punch, often referred to as the one-hitter quitter, and then strip the victim of their valuables right there on the spot. Jackets, wallets, shoes, whatever they wanted, they took. The people they targeted would often wake up dazed, beaten, and completely robbed, all while SOS walked away unbothered. One of the most chilling incidents involving the Sons of Samoa gang was the tragic murder of 25-year-old Nolan Pamintuan, a young man who was on the brink of one of the happiest days of his life. On May 17, 1996, Nolan was preparing for his wedding to his fiancée, Rowena Pinello, which was set to take place the very next day in Daly City near San Francisco. He had planned everything down to the last detail, taking an active role in organizing the big day. That evening, after spending time at his parents' house in Hayward, he had a list of errands to run for the following morning: booking a hotel room for after the wedding, picking up tuxedos for himself and his groomsmen, and helping his Aunt Edith with wedding preparations. But instead of waking up to a day of joy and celebration, Nolan became the victim of an unspeakable nightmare. That night, as he stepped out of his car in Hayward, he caught the attention of a group of men driving by in a stolen van. Timing, in this case, was everything. If Nolan had been just 2 minutes faster or slower, he might have avoided their notice altogether. But as fate would have it, the men saw him, targeted him on the spot, and decided to rob him. At gunpoint, Nolan was forced into their van and driven around the Bay Area while his captors stripped him of all his possessions. As if that wasn't terrifying enough, the situation took an even darker turn. The men began arguing among themselves about who would kill Nolan. Despite Nolan's desperate pleas for his life, their decision was merciless. He was shot once in the chest with a sawed-off shotgun and left to die in the middle of a street in Hayward. His lifeless body was discovered shortly after midnight, on what was supposed to be his wedding day. The news of Nolan's death sent shockwaves through the community, devastating his friends, family, and especially his fiancée Rowena. She was informed of his murder just half an hour before the wedding was scheduled to begin, turning what should have been the happiest day of their lives into a day of unimaginable grief. What made the crime even more senseless was how sloppy the perpetrators were. They left clues everywhere, holding on to easily identifiable stolen items, keeping clothing splattered with Nolan's blood, and making no real effort to cover their tracks. Detectives had no trouble piecing the case together, and within 10 days, 4 suspects were arrested. The group included 2 juveniles, an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old man, who was believed to be the shooter. As it turned out, 3 of them were members of the Sons of Samoa Gang. During the trial, 2 of the suspects cooperated with authorities, turning informants in exchange for 16-year prison sentences. The other 2, including the suspected shooter, were convicted and remain locked up to this day. Yet, despite their reputation for violence, stories have surfaced over the years that paint a more complicated picture of the gang. Some say SOS wasn't all bad and that there were times when they stepped up to help people in need, sometimes even those who weren't affiliated with the gang.